What does it cost to replace a furnace and add air conditioning in Seattle? This is a question that I got when touring a home in Seattle with some clients quite recently. Now, I walked into a room and found a furnace that was the size of the entire room. So, if you walk into a home and it has a furnace that is like a 1950s computer where it feels like it takes up the entire space, or you need a whole building to house it, in this case, a whole room, pretty good sign that it is vintage, my friend, and you might have a furnace replacement cost to plan for in your future. This is one of those things where those old oil furnaces can run for a very long time, but you do need to be prepared to replace them. So the question came up when we saw this oil furnace on site in Seattle in a home that was for sale. What would it cost to replace the furnace? So I did some digging and calling around, and I was able to get some over the phone numbers about replacing this oil furnace with a high efficiency furnace right here in Seattle. And this is what I found out. So to go from oil to gas with a high efficiency furnace would cost between $8,300 and $9,300. That would then be plus tax. So you would need to be also decommissioning the oil furnace. I did call PLIA, or the Pollution Liability Insurance Agency, to talk to them about what it actually costs to decommission an oil tank, which will be accompany the furnace. So replacing your furnace, they would also, remove the old one and dispose of it. But there is that on-site tank, so that will be part of your cost to plan for. The PLIA agency said that that would be approximately $1,100 to $1,500 to decommission that tank, depending on whether you're removing it and actually have to physically extract it, or if you're, just decommissioning it in place and filling it with foam. It's cheaper, of course, to leave it where it is if it's buried in the ground or behind the house and fill it with foam than it is to have heavy equipment come and actually replace or extract, excuse me, the actual tank and decommission it that way. Now, so getting back to the furnace question, so that will be $8,300 to $9,300 plus tax. You would have an option to go with something like a heat pump, which can do heat and cooling year round. They tend to be higher efficiency, and those were quoted around $98.50 to do a heat pump right here in the city. Now, I would just like to give a little caveat that these numbers assume that you have, ducting in place, that you're not having to establish ducting. So if you have a home that doesn't have an existing, ducting to plug into, that would be additional cost to do that. Or you might go with a different type of heating and cooling solution, maybe like a mini split, something that would, could be hung on the wall, maybe embedded the ceiling, but isn't going to require the ducting to be in place. So whenever you go to call and get an actual quote, a lot of times you'll get the runaround. They'll tell you that they need to come out for an estimate, and that is true to an extent. Usually, they can give you some ballpark numbers, and I was really glad to be able to get these. Now, back to that oil tank. So when you walk into a room and you're touring a house, or you're a homeowner and you're thinking, should I replace this furnace before I put my house on the market? And if it takes up a whole room, it's an oil furnace that's many, many years old, probably more than 40 or even 50 years old if it's an oil tank. One of the things that is really important to ensure if you're buying a home specifically is that there is pollution liability insurance, or PLIA, in place. There is a policy that covers Washington homeowners, and you had to register your home if it has an active oil furnace before July 1st of 2020. You can go online to their website and check the public records, or make a public records request to get proof of their insurance. And if the insurance is in place in the event there has been a leak, then you would be eligible for up to $60,000 of pollution basically coverage or cleanup. So sometimes these oil tanks, they're standard sizes anywhere from about 300 gallons, maybe 600, depending on the size of the house. They sometimes leak into the ground, and there needs to be environmental cleanup. It's very expensive, and this would cover up to like $60,000. So if there is an oil furnace and it's active and the tank has not been decommissioned, and there's not PLEA, they can no longer retroactively register the property for PLEA insurance. And as a home buyer, you could be liable to pay for that coverage when you're decommissioning your tank or if you're needing to do cleanup of the soil and such. So it is really important to check these public records before you purchase a property and know that that's in place. Or you're moving ahead with a potentially $60,000 liability, which is a big risk to take on. So sometimes I've found that when you go online, you're checking, you need the owner's last name and the address to check if the PLEA is in place. I did find it doesn't always pull them up, even though they are registered and covered. So there's a phone number that you can access. I'll put that in the notes below. And you can see, actually, I've gotten a real person on the phone both times. I think I talked to Amy, which is amazing. And within just a couple of rings, you can verify the information that they have PLEA and request the public records if you are considering purchasing a home, which I encourage you to fully vet before you sign on the dotted line and buy that property. So this is a little bit of the information about what it costs to actually replace a furnace. It's one of those things when you're either buying or selling a home, it's really good to know, what are we talking about in terms of scope, right? When you see things in a house, whether you need to, replace the galvanized plumbing or replace a roof, get new windows, or in this case, you have a furnace that is likely a ticking time bomb. It's one of those things where, yeah, it's probably fine until it's not fine and you need to replace it. So budget around $10,000 for this. If you're wanting to do heating and air conditioning, that's going to be more like, $15,000 to $20,000 plus tax. Now, sales tax here in the city of Seattle is 10.25%. That does go add up rather quickly, something really important to budget for. Now, these numbers, vary by different contractors and companies, but this gives you a ballpark idea of what to expect. Now, if you are planning on selling your home and you have a really old furnace, this might be something you consider taking care of, or at least at a minimum, make sure that you've had a certified contractor, HVAC company come in and clean and service your heater, your furnace. And this will give buyers a peace of mind that it's in good operating condition, that kind of thing. It's great to have that done before the inspector rolls through to check everything out and see when the latest service records were for that particular unit. Now, selling your house, not every real estate agent is like me. Is calling around to find out what does it actually cost to replace this stuff. So if you are a seller, now it's great to work with somebody that will give you great advice and be able to tell potential buyers, what the scope of this problem or this upcoming expense would actually be. But it could be something you might want to actually take care of. That way, people have transparency and certainty around the longevity of the unit or what it would realistically cost to replace, so it doesn't get overestimated or scare people off that just don't want to do any work. Because one thing I found in this market is that people and buyers in particular, there's a lot of buyers out there, and even though interest rates have increased, there's a lot of activity, even multiple offer situations, very competitive in some cases, but not as much on homes that need a little work. And it might not really be that big of a scope. Like a new furnace, this is not going to be a project that takes months and months and months and is really disruptive or crazy expensive, but it could be a barrier to entry or a hurdle for someone to write an offer. So one of those things to determine what to take care of. At a minimum, get it serviced for a few $100s, or maybe consider doing that replacement preemptively and having it taken care of. So it's just an easy check off item when somebody goes to your house. Thank you so much for joining me today. I'm Julie Bennett. I'm a Seattle real estate agent and a woman on a mission to make renovation easier. I love digging into renovation projects, and some of this deferred maintenance or these maintenance items are really important for maintaining the value of your home and having a successful listing, or making it easier for buyers to come in and say yes. So whether you are considering just making some improvements and performing some maintenance, or you're getting ready to list your house, this is a good channel to follow. I'd love it if you'd follow along and tune in for more bite-sized real estate and renovation tips. Thanks so much for listening in, and check out the other videos too, so you can make renovation easier for whatever your project is. Thanks, guys.